Big ideas start with a spark. At Tassi's, we use that spark to ignite the fire in ourselves and our kids. So with the trust we build and the knowledge we share, we can grow together and stand tall, creating opportunities to advance in business while setting an example for the next generation. Whether you are starting fresh in Portugal or expanding globally, we're here to support each other. This is more than a network. We are a community that sets the examples for the leaders of tomorrow.
You're creating content. So I would love to know sort of what do you think about what you've learned so far about creating and putting yourself out there?
I think, to be honest, it's just a willingness to fail, right? You have to make that conscious decision of switching from a consumer to a creator and being able to put yourself out there in the world and just kind of do what makes you scared. And I try to have that framework when I'm thinking about a decision or an opportunity that comes up is if I'm scared of it and if there's no physical harm that could happen to me, then yes, I'm going to run towards that opportunity and try to take that moment and then, create content and just keep putting yourself out there in the world and be willing to fail and be willing to have rejection and people tell you that what you're doing is maybe wrong or that you shouldn't be doing it this young and then be able to iterate from there. And that's what I think is so special about people these days.
That's awesome. So what skills have you learned so far by creating all the stuff that you're putting out on the internet?
Well, I mean, from the Scene podcast, and recently I've been focused on my LinkedIn as well, it's just you can meet so many incredible people if you really open yourself up to it. So recently I started to put together a group on LinkedIn, the first cohort of ambitious founders and builders and people that are looking to leverage LinkedIn and start to grow on there. And I've met so many incredible people my age and people older as well that are starting things. And it's just incredible to see what people are starting to found these days. It's been really incredible.
What skills do you think you're creating right now that's more, or what students should be thinking about that's most important for the next 10 to 20 years?
I would say a focus on, there's AI, a lot of AI tools are coming out now, and being able to educate yourself about that with not just LLMs, but also looking at agentic AI. And there's so many new tools that are coming out that really what's separating the people that can create so much is not anymore that talent, and you don't have to be technical anymore, but just that willingness to fail and that willingness to put yourself out there and to create. That's all that's really the barrier to entry anymore. There is no barrier to entry.
That's awesome. Miguel, listen, you also have a great podcast. You've been interviewing people from all around the world, entrepreneurs. And what some of the patterns are you noticing that of all the people you've interviewed that are changing, how you think about your own future and your decisions?
So the patterns that I saw the most were the what and the how. So the what is what you're passionate about, what you love, all that kind of stuff. And the how is how you got there. Maybe you get the first time, boom, bingo, you already got the love of your life, basically. But, you need to change. Sometimes you need to change something. And the people that I saw that were the most successful were the people that were open to change. So, for example, I had this interviewer, Marcia Martins, she worked at his law firm, and then she changed completely into going to arts. Now she works at these, she uses seeds from the Amazon forest to create designer clothes, such as Giorgio Armani. So yeah, it's open to change and not being scared to go out there and explore.
That's great. So what's the best advice you've heard so far? I know there's a lot of people you've interviewed. I know it's hard to kind of narrow it down, but what are some of the top advice you've heard from interviewing all these special, successful people? I
think when I started, I thought about the corporate life being very into the norms, very within boundaries. You gotta dress in some way, you gotta talk in some way. And then, I interviewed this person, Sonia Vora. She was the chief HR from the Bill Gates Foundation. And then she said, the workplace needs your uniqueness. You need to be different. And that kind of broke my expectations. Wow, because I'm already used to this idea of being set into boundaries and, gotta follow this consensus of being successful. So, yeah.
That's great. Lilyrose, I'm going to ask you a question, but before we ask any specific question, I'd love for you to tell everyone in the audience what you've done at your age. Tell us about your special story, because I'm going to ask you a specific question about that.
So, what I've done is that I created a concept of a Cartier watch using AI. I made my base idea, how I wanted it to look like, but I also had to do a lot of research because you don't just make a watch and write the name Cartier on it. You have to look at the design codes. What makes it a Cartier watch? What makes it a luxury watch? And you have to look at the history too, like how it was built, to know what standards were made. So I made a watch and I called it the Midnight Panther, and it really reflects, I feel like it really reflects the idea of Cartier, and none of it being like all shiny and like the first thing you see on someone's wrist, but of it being delicate and more of like something proud to wear.
I've seen that watch and it's absolutely incredible design you created. And I'd love to kind of understand, how do you think AI helped you, but obviously using AI to create this and recreate this beautiful watch, how did you think about it, the creativity? How did AI affect you using it creatively?
AI, it isn't always 100% correct. It makes mistakes. Sometimes it flips things upside down, changes things to the wrong color. Instead of blue, it could be pink, for example. But it's not just a mistake. It changes your view of perspection. Like, you see it from another perspective. It could spark new ideas. It can make you have like another feeling about a specific color, for example. Like maybe at first you wanted to do blue and then now you want to change to green because the AI made a mistake and it just looks better. Overall, it makes you look at it from another's perspective and create new ideas too.
How do you think the future is going to look like, especially something like AI, in terms of how it's changing in the future? How do you think it's going to affect you as an artist and a designer?
People often think that it replaces artists and designers, but it assists. It helps to make things faster, to create faster, to spark new ideas, as I already said, but also just to move the picture in your mind to right in front of you on your computer or on your iPad. It's really clever, it's smart, but it's not creative. It's just a complex mathematic algorithm. It gets tons of information, mixes all up into what you want to hear, and gives it back to you. You could see that it's not creative because whenever an AI makes a picture, you can instantly see, you could sometimes see what AI is. There's patterns, there's signs. So that's why creativity is still, to this day, with the humans, not the AI. So I don't think it replaces it, it just assists and helps.
Yeah, and I think that's beautifully put. And obviously, it's going to be a co-pilot to create more creativity into the world. Mia, when I was speaking to you a couple of weeks ago, you had this, you had a massive thought about AI and how it impacts politics and also global decision making. What excites you about that future and how that's going to impact the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that AI has previously and will continue to make massive revolutions to the field of politics. For example, it's been used to simulate public policy decisions over the course of years, so that policymakers can make better informed decisions. It's really helpful for translation and widening access to translation, which can not only help facilitate international diplomacy, but, for example, if there are communities which are represented by a government but don't speak the same language as that government, it can allow them to better communicate with them and advocate for themselves. And then, of course, AI has a massive capacity as a social and an economic equalizer. It can allow lay people to translate obscure legalese into a format that they can understand. Basically, it can also allow people in under-resourced communities, for example, to release their own startups. Like as Kaia talked about, there are fewer barriers to entry, and so in that regard, it can be very effective.
So in terms of what you're thinking about politics and also the technology that's available, and especially in AI, because that's obviously something that we got to be concerned about, do you feel optimistic or do you feel cautionary around, as you look ahead over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, there's absolutely a lot of areas that I am cautious about in regards to AI. Essentially, in one regard, there's obviously the white collar redundancy that it could potentially create. AI will of course create jobs, but I personally am doubtful that it will create enough to replace the ones that are lost. And then of course there's AI being used in ways that I outright disagree with in governments. For example, in the United States, AI has been used by policymakers. It's been allowed to be used by the police to generate incident reports that are inaccurate. It's been used and is being used to facilitate ethnically biased facial identification software. And I think that it's that kind of usage which requires it to be legislated. Absolutely.
Thank you for that. So I'm just as a general question for anybody, like as you're learning something right now, let's kind of think about sort of current situations. When you're trying to learn something new or important, where do you kids go to right now? Is it YouTube? Is it, do you talk to AI? Is it through friends? Kaia, let's hear your answer first.
Personally, I'm going to go to the LLMs like ChatGPT and just have more of a general overview of, okay, what is this, whatever I'm trying to learn, like what is it that I'm trying to learn? Maybe what are the steps I can do to then implement? But then mostly what I'm going to try to do is try to do whatever it is that I'm trying. I don't know, you don't have a specific scenario, but I'm going to try and take action on whatever it is. And that's where I find that I get the best learning, is actually going through the steps that maybe AI has provided me or that the YouTube has provided me, and then going through the motions. And I think that that's the best way that you can really learn, because you're learning to fail. And then in that failure, you're learning to iterate and change. And then you have that almost more in-depth process of learning. At least for me, that's what I do.
Lilyrose, what about you? Like you're obviously creative and as an artist, where do you go to learn?
So I just look at the overall view. I go to Google with AI that's already implemented in it, which really does help. But it's more like after I have my base, I expand. So it depends, like the source also, like where I get my information from. Like I might not get it from Google because it might not be the most trustworthy source or the most creditable. I'd go to my teachers or save my exams, for example. Like for school, I'd go to study, like my teacher, my like really creditable websites, not just Google overall.
Right.
So it really depends on what's happening, the importance of like the credibility and the source, really, where it comes from.
Great. Miguel, what about you? Where do you learn? Where do you find your inspirations?
When I don't know something and I really like trying to understand again, I go to YouTube because I feel like I can learn more someone explaining me. Even though it's through like a video, I think at least it's a person explaining to you the concept. Or I'll just ask my teachers again, like if I have any doubts. But I think regarding to AI, I think I just use it like as a base because I don't think it's great at explaining. But I would say my go-to is YouTube, definitely.
Amia?
I agree with Miguel that YouTube is a great initial resource. Sometimes I'll put videos on while I'm making breakfast in the morning or in the shower or whatever. So if I find an idea and I'm like, wow, this is interesting, but I don't know anything about this, I'll throw on a YouTube video. There's plenty of just really educated people on YouTube who kind of explain things, and then that way it's very intellectually and emotionally accessible for me to just kind of get into things so that I can know a little bit about a very broad range of ideas. But then if I decide something's worth really going into, really exploring further, then I'll move to maybe journal articles, to news sources. And then for me, a way that I like to develop my own opinions and my own informed and defensible positions is I like to debate with the people around me. I like to debate with my dad, with my teachers, with my friends. And, I take my initial position on the matter, and then, there's a back and forth, maybe something that I thought initially was wrong, or that I realized in the course of the debate that I don't actually believe that it's not defensible. And so then that way I feel like I'm able to come away with nuanced opinions that are really true to how I feel, even under scrutiny, under pressure.
Excellent. So just a quick one. I'm curious, actually. When you watch YouTube or podcasts, what speed do you have it on? 1, 1.5?
2 times.
2 times speed?
One time.
One time?
One time.
One time?
1.5.
1.5. Okay, yeah. All right.
2 times is the best answer.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about, I'd love to hear your perspective on motivation and pressure. Like, what do you think are, like, what are some of the energies that, drain you? What are some of the things that are going on in your lives right now that drain you? But what are some of the pressures that, maybe us adults may not fully understand?
I think for me, it's a lot of internal pressure that I put on myself, and like I really want to create so many projects and have all these ideas, and I want to get out there and start talking to people. And I find, Mr. Chagouin, I'm sorry if you're in the audience, but I find schoolwork can be quite draining because takes a lot of time and energy to put into the IB program and to put into my grades and keep those up. And yes, it can be great. You have to put a lot of time into it, and it's not necessarily where I want to be spending my time. Ideally, I don't get as much fulfillment out of that. Whereas I'd love to spend that time on my own personal projects or on the podcast, but there are certain seasons, of course, like exam season, where I'm not able to spend as much time on those projects. Sorry, Mr. Chagouin.
So I think this idea of like falling behind, you see like all over the internet, these kids doing like a lot of things and being creative or like doing drop shipping or whatever.
How do you think us adults feel about that? If you feel the pressure.
And especially like, us 12th graders, we just finished our IB mocks and like we have a lot of pressure like in school and outside of school, and we're trying to do these things like simultaneously and we don't do it well. So I think how do I do it is I just choose the things that I really love and put all my effort into it, because I think if we put every single like sweat and everything into one thing, we'll do it well.
Yeah.
So,
Lilyrose, sorry.
So for me, what drains me is, at least for now, it's school, because you can put so much effort into it, and it might just not come out the way you want it. Your grades might not be as high as you wanted, or you could have put in so much effort, so many hours, so much time, and you just get a B or a C. And it's not really what you want it to be. And of course, it's school, it's hard. Everyone goes through that, and it's something normal. Especially in, like Kaia said, exam season. I know it's not the same level, but it really does drain the energy, but you really learn a lot of things along the way too.
Okay, yeah.
I think that something that they don't recognize is the amount of pressure, the amount of competition, really, that there is for people at our age compared to maybe when they were our age. The competition for universities, for jobs, for housing, all of that, it's so much steeper than it was previously. And the education system and parents' expectations and all of that, I don't think have fully adapted to that, to the new situation that we're in that regard. There was a baby boom the year before I was born, There's a lot of people right now who are also skilled and talented, and so it can be a lot harder to distinguish yourself and to feel confident, even if you're intelligent and you're successful, that you have a very certain future. And I think that AI has brought a lot to that uncertainty as well. All four of us, we're going to be going into university soon. We don't know if the degrees that we get are even going to be useful in 5 years, right? AI is changing things so quickly, and we're just at an unprecedented stage of growth. And for people who already have established careers and experience and everything, it's scary, certainly. But if you're kind of in the position that we are, and we haven't done anything yet in the job market, it can be very scary, a lot of pressure.
Okay, so last question. You got 30 seconds each for this. You have 1 year, no grades, no pressure, no expectations. What would you do? What would you build? What would you explore?
Me first?
Yeah.
I'd focus on the podcast right now. I've just found so much love and so much fulfillment in doing that. And it's just been really amazing to be able to connect with so many different entrepreneurs and founders that I wouldn't have been able to before. And you really never know who's watching. Like the other day, Tony Robbins picked it up and I got a clip of it on the summit. And that was just an amazing moment for me because I look up to him. And I know you went to his summits when you were younger. And that was, you just never know who's watching. You just really have to put yourself out there and just keep building.
Honestly, I think I would go to school. I had this hot take where school without pressure or tests is better than summer. In summer you're without your friends, especially international students. They're traveling back home and seeing their grandparents, and you're still alone in Portugal. And in school is actually fun. You're like learning, you're with your friends, then you have recess, you can play a sport or eat lunch. So yeah, I think I would just go to school, I guess. Mr. Shikran is part of that.
Yeah, Mr. Shikran's here, isn't he? He's here somewhere.
I kind of agree too. It makes sense, but I also want more like of my free time. Like I take a lot more advantage of my free time compared to now. I travel. I guess a lot of people would, but I'd also travel and just like maybe see friends from like different countries that I haven't seen in a while, and just like have fun, you know?
Excellent.
So when I'm looking at some of the problems that arise with AI, I think that one of the issues is that there's often a gap between the people who are creating and implementing AI and the professionals who are having to use it and are, you know, being replaced by it in some instances, things like that. And there can be a lot of friction between those two groups. But I think it's really important that that gap is kind of bridged so that the professionals with the experience and the know-how are part of the conversation and how AI is implemented, because you know AI is coming and will continue to come, and that's not something I think that can be avoided. So making sure that AI is implemented with the input of people who can ensure that it's used effectively, efficiently, and ethically is really important. So I think if I had a little bit of free time, I would like to go to school, but I would also like to do something to facilitate those conversations, because I think that's the way that we can implement AI in a way that helps us instead of harms us.
Ladies and gentlemen, our future.